let's move to Werner.
Let's do this. Okay, so my story starts back in South Africa. In fact, on my way to, I was at the paintball range in Johannesburg, South Africa. And at that point, I had to go see one of my most important clients. In fact, he was not only a client, he was a sponsor, he was an advertiser, he's also a dear friend. And I felt I had to go and look him in the eye, and we took a walk, and I turned to him and I said, Mike, dude, I fucked up. But I'm going to have to let you wait a little bit longer to tell you what Mike told me that day. Now, in this presentation, or rather the story, it's not a presentation, Werner, I want to share with you how important it is to actually start building your brand early on when you create your business, and then also doing so with intent. Now, a lot of things that I'm talking about here is by mistake and have changed since then. And also, the other thing I want to mention, there's a lot of definitions around brand, and I don't want to dive into that because a lot of people disagree what brand is. I'm not a professor in marketing. I'm just a humble entrepreneur that understands the value of brand, that sage-like power it has. But in the comments, has anybody ever heard of paintball? Now, my journey with paintball started 20 years ago. It was a decade-long adventure, and also the creation or the start of my first real business. And very little of my current friends actually know this side of me, right? The jersey's hanging there at the back. But one of the things, if you ever met me and I handed you a business card, yes, I come from that era, you'll notice something strange on that business card, the word wiener dog. And here is an example of one of my recent Deloitte business cards. And if you look carefully past the facts, I don't know why that's there, you'll see that wiener dog is there. And wiener dog was actually given to me by a pro-American paintball player when I first traveled into the great wide world of professional paintball. And I kind of hung on to it. And the reason I hung on to that wiener dog is that part of the story that I'm trying to relay here is kind of a reflection of that, and I carry that along throughout my career. But wiener dog, now to tell you the story, I have to take you a little bit back into time. I have to explain to you about wiener dog a little bit more. Now today, wiener dog, who is actually Werner Puchert, is a creative entrepreneur. I'm an independent consultant, focus on all kinds of interesting things. But then before that, I actually worked for Deloitte Digital. And at Deloitte Digital, we started 2 Deloitte Digitals, one in Johannesburg, South Africa, and then later on, one in Central Europe. And therefore, my living arrangements currently, and that also a wife that I'm currently living in Warsaw, Poland. Before that, though, taking you more back into time, I was actually serving on the board of directors for TBW Tequila. It is a digital marketing agency, like the real deal, madman kind of stuff. We did amazing work for clients like Adidas, Visa, Nissan South Africa, and even McDonald's. Yes, I sold hamburgers too. And then for the relevance of the story, because everything kind of builds up, Wiener Dog also worked for a newspaper. So I worked in the old school kind of newspaper business. I worked for a real deal editor, people who valued the insights of real journalism, something that some people argue we don't have anymore today, but I got trained by those guys. But then also during that time, and that's about 20 years ago, we also started moving into the strange world of digital, and we started doing digital publishing. So a lot of the newspapers we created actually shifted into digital publications. Now, that's also around that time that I started my little business called sapaintball.co.za. So hang on to this. There's SA, which means South Africa, my country of origin, and then paintball, the sport, and then at the end, .co.za, the extension, the domain extension for websites in South Africa. And I ran and managed this business for about 10 years. Now, at the beginning, I asked you, hey, do you know anything about paintball? And this is an important question because there's a lot of aspects to paintball. I mean, people know it as splat attack, war games, and all these kind of things. I know it as hyperball, speedball or airball, or tournament paintball. And in fact, I want to show you a quick example, if I may, of what paintball is really about, or the paintball that I know. There's no audio here, but here you can see people playing, going crazy. Mirror fields, I think the audio is playing in the background. Music to get at the hype. Symmetry, sport, you have to be fit. painful. We had referees, full-on team sport. And there we have it, the famous gog shot or cyclops. I hate getting those, but dishing them out is the best feeling in the world. So the thing is that I kind of sucked at sport at school. And you might know that South Africa is a heavy rugby playing country and football. If you look at these bad boys, these aren't playing rugby anytime soon. And I started playing paintball, and for some reason I kind of realized that I'm actually kind of good with this sport. I mean, some of my fellow teammates might disagree, but I did build a career out of it. And it is that point that I decided, man, I want to make a living out of paintball. Now I know. Jens is probably going to chip in with Werner. This is about how I fucked up. But the thing is, to set up the fuck up, I need to tell you what I did right. Now, a lot of the things that I did right, I actually only realized in hindsight. You know, they say hindsight is 20/20. So I looked back at some of the things that went right to actually build this business up. So one of the first things I did is to actually focus on my editorial skills. At some stage, someone approached me and said, listen, Werner, do you want to create a business where we have a paintball range, you can have people playing, and then someone offered me like an opportunity to sell equipment with them. I knew nothing about hospitality and retail. But one thing I did know about was publishing. So I started focusing on that. And that brings me to my first point. The one thing I did right with the business, one of the few, is the adjacent possible. I looked at what my skills were and I applied it to something new, paintball. So I started this kind of online portal where I publish articles, reviews, news of what was happening in South Africa. Then the second thing I did, which worked brilliantly, is like I mentioned at the beginning, I didn't want to be associated with the war games and the military and guns and all that kind of stuff. Paintball, tournament paintball, was seen as a sport. It was serious. At some stage, they actually wanted to push it to the Olympics. It was part of the X Games at some point, ESPN. Tournament paintball was serious. And I started to niche down, and that's the second thing I did. I niched down to focus only on the South African tournament paintball player. And what worked in my favor is that these were also the guys who had the money, the time to spend to play paintball. And like me, they shared my passion. They were hyper passionate about the sport. So brutally niching down to the audience that I wanted to serve. The next thing I did that started to give me some growth or traction in the market was tension. So how did I do that? No one was coming to the website. So the first thing I did is I created a list of my dream customers, the people that I wanted to deal with. So in the customers, I went paintball teams, advertisers, paintball ranges, and I wanted to open up to all players. So the first thing I did is I approached a few South African paintball teams, like the top teams. I offered them some space on my website because I knew something that they didn't have was actually access to the internet back then, because it was very difficult to do web development. They didn't have the access or know-how. I gave them some space and they started jumping on board. And when they jumped on board, a lot of people said, me too, I want some of that. Also, what played in my favor is that one of the actual teams actually offered to carry my branding on their shirts, which was a huge move for me. And so, like, really creating that tension was important. But South Africa, SA Paintball.co.za was growing. It was kind of getting traction, but not enough. And it was only at some stage when I was sending my little newsletter out to my big database that one of my mates turned to me and said to him, Werner, why don't you sign your name on this in this email? People want to know who you are. You're kind of like hidden behind this thing, and maybe there's a byline, but no one knows who Werner is. Soon to be Wiener Dog. And that's where I bring my last point in about what went right. Is like I signed my name to it. But signing my name was also going out to meet people where they were doing business. I went to kiss babies, shake hands, opening of fields, supporting new teams. I did as much as I could, sharing that passion for the sport. But they knew who I was. They could connect with me. And let's be clear, not everybody liked Werner or Wiener Dog. The other thing I did that was kind of like a remnants from the editorial space is that journalists have rules. There's rules to journalism. So what I did, it wasn't a kind of terms of engagement on my website. It was like a constitution that I created that I also held myself accountable to. So sometimes I would write an article or I would favor someone else above someone else, and then I had to go online and actually apologize because that was against the constitution of SA Paintball.co.za. And I think you've seen this happening. Some do it well, some don't, like Elon Musk stepping into the limelight for his businesses. You have people like Shonda Rhimes, who founded a lot of production companies, and she's also a brand in herself. So don't be shy to step into the limelight when you have your business. I mean, it went crazy, man. It went like kind of out of hand. Now, you can see yours truly there on an international paintball magazine. Yes, I made this spread. Okay. My mom still got a lot of copies of those, right? But otherwise in the business, advertising, international advertising, I had deals with international magazines. I wrote for them. They sent me content. I had correspondence also over South Africa. Things went great. I also made some affiliate revenue from gear that I sold on the website for other guys. But as you can see, there's a sample of the website. Looks very 90s, I know. But it's around this time that I started screwing up. Things started going wrong there. The first thing that I would say that what went wrong there is that I started focusing way too much on what was happening inside the business. I was creating features, updating the website. I wasn't focusing on creating systems around my business to actually allow more people in. Yes, correspondence, but at the end of the day, I was updating the website. I was running to all the events. I didn't scale my business properly. And this is where the darkness came. Because at some stage, through a friend of a friend, this guy approached me. We met a few times and he said to me, listen, Werner, I can see you working your ass off. I've got a deal for you. I have an internet service provider locally in South Africa. I'm actually running it. I have servers at home. I'm going to offer you free server space. Move your site over. I'll take anything. You don't have to pay for hosting anymore. Because at that time, I was hosting in the States, paying a monthly fee. And I think also back then, you had to pay for the actual amount of data that you were using. And it was getting kind of expensive. And I thought, damn it, man, this sounds great. Let's do this. But strange things started happening during that time. It's the first time ever that the site got hacked. Someone was actually writing dirty shit over the website. Started stressing me out because this is not the brand that I wanted to build. And then I started realizing really what is the value of actually paying for something. Because if you pay for something, you can complain about it. You can demand the service that you needed. And then I went and I played open cards with this guy. I said, listen, dude, and this is not working out for me. I need the security and the backup that this other entity allows. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually busy redesigning the website anyway. I'm going to move the website back to my American host. Hard feelings. And he said, let's do this. Let me know what you need and I'll help you sort this out. So I was sorting out the new site. And then when it came time to flip the switch, his demeanor changed like that in an hour. He sent me email demanding 80,000 Rand. Back then, it was a shitload of money. Money I didn't have. He claimed that I owed him this money because of the hosting. And what I didn't realize back then when I first did the change over to the website is that he actually took ownership of sapaintball.co.za. He fundamentally, at the core, owned the web domain name. Now, I'm a bit more savvy now, but he took ownership of that. I mean, he even tried to sell the domain at some stage as well. I was devastated. I mean, a shitstorm ensued. It was crazy times. I mean, as a youngster going into this world, I tried to get to the domain authority. They told me to bugger off because, what's this guy? I had lawyers, expensive people who charged by hour. They couldn't do anything. And it was just super stressful. And in some way, the guy kept the website going so that I can update it. And I started kind of working for him. But I knew the writing is the wall. I lost sapaintball.co.za. The baby that I created was gone. And I had to go face the fire with my advertisers and the people that I was serving. And this brings me to the paintball range back in Johannesburg where my story started. Walking alongside Mike, and we were about to host this tournament together, and he invested some cash for the sapaintball.co.za 101 challenge. It was an annual event that ran every year. And he was going to make it big that year. I told him the story. And Mike is an ex-boxer. He didn't mince his words. I was also a bit worried about a right hook. But when I looked him in the eye, I never saw Mike actually shine through so much empathy. He looked me in the eyes and he said, Brew, just change the fucking name. And that's what Mike taught me about branding back then. Because what he said to me is that, you know what, Werner, people are there for you. Brother, they came to hang out with you for the shared passion. And it took Mike to point out that out to me as a kind of a learning around brand. And not everybody liked SA Paintball for what it was, and maybe they didn't like me either, but they appreciated what I was doing. And it was only later on when I started working in user experience and customer experience that I realized what that was. I'm going to go through those. So the first thing that you focus on is trying to establish satisfaction. We all want to do that. You know, you want to satisfy the customer. The second thing is loyalty, you know, and I think through SA Paintball, I got that right. It was working. Now, lots of times, if you look at the McKinsey model, they will go, yeah, you know, you need advocacy. Advocacy. People need to say good stuff about you and actually drive back traffic. But there's a better word for it. And that's what I got from the community in South Africa, was goodwill. Because when shit hit the fan, they turned to support me. So what we did is we changed sapaintball.co.za into sapaintball.info. And after that, what happened was that we relaunched the website. The website became part of a whole tournament relaunch. So in the event that we were going to host was actually the relaunch of sapaintball.info. And it ran for another 5 years. Also culminating at the end in me playing the World Cup in Malaysia. We won the World Cup there. And it's around that time that I actually hung up my marker. And also because I knew that my passion for the sport was kind of dwindling a little bit, that is also the time to actually shut down sapaintball.co.za, or in fact .info. But the funny story is that one of the people who actually was one of my advertisers, actually later on, a couple of years later on, got to buy .co.za back, and he gave it back to me as a present. So a quick recap, what I was saying is that, first of all, adjacent possible, focus on what you're good at. Second thing is brutally niche down to that audience that you require. Create tension, you know, make people want your product or your service. Sign your name, add yourself to the game, or, you know, at least set the constitution in place. And then don't forget to work on the business. I know working in the business and getting it going is important, but look at the future, because I think sapaintball.co.za could have been so much more if I looked into the future. And then finally, never, ever, ever trust a South African internet service provider. Thank you.